And we are live. Good morning. Welcome to another Super Galactic Saturday. Uh, it's Jerry Sr. here with Jerry Jr.
Good morning.
And we are enjoying our Saturday morning. The weather is looking good. It was a lot of overcast at first, but it's clearing up, looking better, looking sunny and bright. And another day above ground is a good day. So thank God for that. And we're gonna kind of talk about a few things today. Uh, and once again, I want to say thanks for joining us. Thanks for tuning in. Those who are watching after this live stream, thanks for watching. We appreciate it. Go to our site, supergalacticfantastic.com. Check out our characters. Check out our stories. We're going to be doing a campaign this year later. The goal is September. And so please support us. Sign up to our mailing list and keep in touch. And we appreciate any support and encouragement. And yeah, thanks for tuning in. So, but we're going to start off by looking at some trailers and commenting about them. Um, we had a couple of big trailers drop the last couple of weeks. One was The Gladiator 2, which is a sequel to the first Gladiator with Russell Crowe, right? Which it's a great movie. It's one of my favorites.
Uh, I saw it a long time ago. Um, I was probably caught it on TV. Um,
Mhm.
don't have much of a. I remember being cool. It just didn't leave much of an impact on me. I will say that was probably my introduction to Russell Crowe. That's really
Yeah,
about it.
yeah, same here. That's a very good point. For me, that was my introduction to Russell Crowe as well. I had never heard of him prior to that,
Hmm.
and yeah, that's a very good point. But yeah, I enjoyed the movie. Yeah, I agree. I don't remember seeing it in theaters. I think I saw it on cable or something, right? Um, or maybe I rented it. I'm not sure. But yeah, I don't think I went to the theaters to see it though. I don't remember going to the theaters to see this particular movie. But yeah, the first one to me it was great. I enjoyed it. Um, it was a lot of fun, and Russell Crowe was great. You know, made for a great warrior and you know uh, gladiator, of course. And yeah, overall the movie was really good. I mean, it was well acted. The production quality was there. Um, yeah, so so it was kind of interesting because when I saw it, I never expected a sequel.
It didn't. I mean, it didn't seem like one of those movies that needed a sequel.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't. It just didn't give that impression that there's going to be some type of, especially because at the end, spoiler alert if you haven't seen the first movie, but he dies, right?
Yeah, I was about to say. Doesn't I was about to ask.
The main character, he dies at at the end, and so you know, unless they were gonna somehow resurrect him, or you know, not to mention in the movie
I doubt it's
original,
that kind of movie.
yeah, in the original movie, his whole family is murdered as well. So his children are murdered, his wife is murdered. Like everything's gone, right? That was the driving force of the character is yeah, Maximus is to kind of take vengeance for his betrayal and loss of his family, right? So and at the end, the implication throughout the whole thing, but it's particularly at the end, is once he kills the ruler and everything, he's mortally wounded and he's dying, but he accepts his death now because he's fulfilled he's gotten his vengeance, and he's the whole implication is that he's going to see them again in heaven, basically, right? That was the whole driving sort of ongoing theme. So yeah, the fact that there is a sequel now is kind of like, huh? Like, why is there a sequel? So it's, yeah, it's kind of weird. Um, I'm not sure, you know. Uh,
Well, I mean, it's a different person as the protagonist, isn't it?
yeah, it's a different actor. It's a different, completely different character. From the trailer, it kind of looks like it was the little boy, I guess, from the first movie, and he's all grown up. But it's a little confusing because I'm
Do you
like,
remember the little boy's name?
no, I don't. I don't
Okay, because the
remember.
main character in this movie, his name is Lucius. Okay,
So
yeah, Lucius Verus.
okay, so it could be, I guess. So somehow he becomes uh, a slave, or because that's kind of who fights in the gladiator games, right? Is generally they're
Yeah.
captive slaves that are turned
Well,
into warriors.
who was Lucius in the first movie?
He was just a little boy. He was the son of, I guess, the sister of the Caesar, right? At that time, so
Yes, his father's. Er,
yeah,
yeah,
it's been a long time since I.
he's the son of the emperor, Roman emperor.
Yeah, so
So
I don't kind of I don't get it. Like, you know, I guess there's been a betrayal, or a subversion, right? Um, and he ends up becoming a slave again, or something, or I don't know. So, but
well, that's the thing.
and there's a scene
So
in the
this is
trailer where the mother, I guess, gives him Maximus's ring that he from
uh
from the first movie. So kind of like passing on the legacy, I suppose. But it's very odd, you know. So it'd be interesting to see how it all kind of played out. I guess how he
yeah.
ends up becoming you know a gladiator. Maybe the kingdom was divided or something, and then they lost the war. Or something, I don't know, because
Well, I'm
part of the plot was sort of getting rid of the Caesar, right? This sort of tyrannical ruler, and becoming more of a democracy, right?
well, yeah. It's all
People direct rule. So
based off of Roman history. So
so it's like, and we the plot at the beginning is the king was going to do it anyway, but then the son finds out and he doesn't like it, and he's upset because basically Maximus, the king, was going to basically give Maximus, who was the general, right, the Roman general, sort of that the power to turn it into a more of a democratic state, right? And
hmm
of course, the son didn't like that, and he murders the father, the current ruler, the current Caesar, right? And obviously becomes Caesar and doesn't do that, right? He wants to keep things the way they are, enjoy his power, and so yeah, that's kind of, and then he betrays Maximus, etc., gets him out of the way, right? And it's like, okay, like what's happening now in this sequel? You know what I mean? Like what's the deal? And so that's the part I'm a little confused about, because it kind of feels like a rehash of the first movie. It doesn't feel like it's something original or something like it's continuing. It looks like it's kind of a rehash. Even there's a scene where he's in the arena and he's like shouting out orders and instructions to the other warriors, right? Like sort of what to do, you know, and
uh
this charging rhino, I guess. And it's kind of like, okay, that reminds me of the scene from the first one where when he first gets to the Coliseum, right, which is the big stage, right, and everyone's kind of panicking, they don't know what to do, they're intimidated, and he starts shouting out order because he's a former general, right? So he goes, "Hey, look, do this, do this formation, do this. This is what and they actually survive, right? Because they listened to Maximus, right? And the people are, especially the rulers are shocked, like, whoa, like what's they're actually fighting and more organized. So it was a cool scene, right? Because it just showed like despite him losing his status as this top general, he still is the man he always was, right? He's still a natural leader, takes charge, does what needs to be done, you know.
Mm.
So I kind of got that impression with this scene as well, you know, and it's like, oh, okay, so it's kind of the same thing over again, and they got wild animals, and you know, so I don't know. Then even Denzel's character, you know, although it seems like he's far more ambitious, but he's parallel to the previous movie. You know, I forgot his name too. Forgive me for not remembering names
Are
from
you
the
talking about
previous.
the Emperor?
No, there's a slave owner that bought Maximus, right?
Uh,
And they become friends, right? Like you know, they earn each other's respect, right? And you know, so his ambitions weren't necessarily to topple the empire, right? It was more like, you know, to, you know, I guess regain some kind of status that he lost, you know, something like that.
is it
Um,
Commodus?
yeah, I think so. Yeah. So Denzel's character seems like a similar, you know, similar position, although he appears to be very wealthy and, you know, like he has a certain place, I guess, in the empire, or maybe it's like I said, maybe it's the same thing where he has slaves and they fight and he makes money from the fights. But it sounds like he wants to do more than just, you know, earn or gain or regain some kind of status. And he's looking to actually take down the Roman Empire.
You're
Right.
talking about Denzel Washington's character, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I'm
Well, so
saying.
here's the
In this one.
thing.
Yeah.
And now this is based off of. I'm not basing this off of the Gladiator, the previous movie. I'm basing this off of real life. So, to my understanding, the character that Denzel Washington plays, his name is. Apologize to all of our negative point two Greek fans, but Marcinus, oh no, Marcrinus, that's his name, Marcrinus.
Okay.
Um, that's the name of his character. He was the Roman Empire. He was the Roman emperor during um, between literally for a year. It looks like, or 2 years between
So, okay.
217 and 218.
So this is a story of his rise to power, I suppose.
Maybe, yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
But that's the thing though is in the first Gladiator movie, if the Roman emperor in that movie was uh what's his name? Was it I'm trying to remember who the bag who like who was the do you remember the antagonist?
From the first Gladiator?
Yeah.
No.
But
And I don't remember names. It's been so long. It's like, how long
was
ago was
he
that?
played by Joe? Was he played by?
Joaquin Phoenix. Yeah, Joaquin Phoenix.
Oh, so that was Commodus. Okay,
Commodus. Yeah,
interesting.
that's right. Yeah.
Commodus, yeah.
So it's coming back to, yeah, Commodus. That's right.
So
Yeah,
Commodus was
he
the
became the
emperor.
new emperor because he murdered his father, right? The previous emperor, and,
Yeah.
took over.
So
So yeah, that's
Commodus
general.
was
It's
the
very
emperor
Shakespearean, right? Yeah.
between 177 and 192. That seems like I could be wrong, but that feels like a big gap in time. So
Okay.
I always say that because it sounds like that's like 40 years.
You're right.
So
Yeah.
it just
Well, right. So I mean, it's a movie, so you know,
Oh, I know, but
I'm not
I
necessarily
know.
worried about the
Yeah,
historical accuracy. I'm just talking about, like, for example, pointing that out, right? The fact that, you know, this character's rise to power. It's
yeah.
like, well, then why is it Gladiator? Why can't it just be this movie about this character that rose to power in Rome and
Maybe
became the
because
emperor
the
through
plot was too
deception
similar to
and,
Gladiators, so they said, let's just make it a
well,
sequel.
I guess, but that's what I'm saying. Like, is it tied to being to the Gladiator games, or I guess his story has to be, but does it? I don't know. It just seems redundant at this point. Um, you know, and especially calling it Gladiator 2 versus just making it another movie. you know, and it happens to have gladiator games and fights, and but it's not about that, right? It's about
Hmm.
this character's rise to power over the Roman Empire, right? Like that would probably be more interesting, just let it kind of stand on its own. But I don't know, you know, but yeah, it looks okay, like the action, but it just seems like it's kind of rehashing the same things from before. Right? It's like making a 300 too.
Well, didn't they
Like
do that?
yeah, they did, and it sucked, right? Like
Yeah.
it wasn't great at all. That's kind of what I'm saying. It's like why are we doing this? So I mean, I know why. It's called cash grab, right? It's like, hey, we're gonna use member berries, and we're gonna rehash
Mr.
this same.
Krabs, why did you build a second Krusty Krab right next to the first one?
Yeah,
Money.
yeah, exactly. Money. Yeah, that's all it is, and it's weird. It's like, but at the same time, it's probably not going to do very well. We'll see. I'll be surprised if it does significant numbers, but I don't anticipate that it will. Just being honest, I don't think it will. But yeah, we'll see. But yeah, it's like, okay, here we, and it's the same. It's the same sort of gripe with Hollywood, right? It's like, okay, no, we're not getting anything original. We're getting sequels, prequels, and reboots, right? It's just the age of the sequels, prequels, and reboots, you know,
I
and
guess. I mean,
the existing IP makes money originally, so hey, it'll make money if we rehash it again, right? And it's like, well, it works for like Fast and the Furious, right? They got how many, like 10, right, or
well,
11,
I
something
think
like
the difference with the Fast, and I'm not even a fan. I'm not even a big fan of
that.
Fast and
I'll be
Furious.
honest, I'm a fan.
Oh, that's fine. I'm just saying,
Uh,
like, as
what
someone
do you
who's
call that?
not a fan of
Guilty
the,
pleasure.
yeah, yeah. I'm just saying, as someone who's not a fan of the movies, I've only seen like two. Um, you get the sense that like they're upping the ante when it comes to the action with each movie, even if it's the dumbest thing ever. It's at least different, right? Like we went from underground street racing in LA to underground street racing in Tokyo to spy espionage to Tokyo drifting on a train, right? They
to
drift a
space,
train
to
and then
space.
yeah, to space.
Or even before space, it was skydiving vehicles
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
out of a
You know
plane.
what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
like
I
it's
mean,
like there's a
it's.
meme where it's
Well, I
like
remember who was that? Was it me and you, or was it someone else? We were talking about how the next one needs to be like a crossover with Transformers.
yeah, no, yeah, no,
Fast and
yeah,
Furious
I
meet
was literally about to say
Transformers,
like there's a
and
meme.
they go to space on
Yeah.
some weird planet, and they have a race with
Yeah, so there's a
against
meme
Decepticons.
where what's his name? Vin Diesel just says because family,
Right? Yeah.
and then dinosaurs appear.
Yeah. Exactly. Grimlock
You
comes
know what
up
I'm saying?
like
So
kills the family. Right? Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, it would be hilarious and fun, but that's the whole point, right? At some point, they like beyond three, right? They realize, look, let's have fun with this, right?
what if
Let's just,
cars
yeah,
but
let's just
dinosaurs?
keep up in the ante, and let's like go
See, at
all.
this point, we need a Cadillacs versus dinosaurs
I
movie.
mean, why not, right? So I can forgive Fast and Furious for the endless sequels because it's like, why? It's that's what it is, right? Like that's what it's. It didn't start off that way, right? But it's become that, and that's fine, right? You know, I don't necessarily hold it against them because I think ultimately they realize what they are, right? What this franchise is. It's not something you're supposed to look at as some kind type of Shakespearean, experience, right? It's popcorn
Yeah.
and fun. That's perfectly fine, right?
That's the
Um,
thing with this. It doesn't. I guess it doesn't look all that. With sans the rhino part, I mean the rhino. I don't know if there was a rhino in the first movie. Uh,
well, the in the first movie there were animals, right? Like I remember one scene. Um, there was tigers, right?
oh,
And,
okay.
and actually, I think there was one where there was a lion, and then there was like tigers. I think something like that.
Uh,
So it got like crazy, right? It was like, whoa, what's going on, right? It was, and that was the whole point was to, uh, sort of emphasize the idea of this is how far it went, where people were entertained by the most depraved forms of brutality,
right.
right? Like to literally throw people to the lions, throw them to wild animals, and just watch them get mauled and killed. Right? That's kind of the point, right? And now, like I said, with the sequel, I don't see the point. It's like okay, but it looks like there is a sort of a bigger twist, I guess. But it's kind of like I don't know. We went from simply becoming a democracy, right? So we went from tyranny to democracy. And now it's going from democracy to something else, I guess, more tyranny again, right? So it's kind of weird. At least that's the implication. That's the impression I got. Basically, is that this guy wants to rule the empire. He wants to topple it and then step in and take it over, right?
I
Uh,
guess.
so it's kind of like okay, you know, that's not a great message, but fine, it's a movie, but yeah, I just don't see the point. So,
Hmm.
and I think that's the case for a lot of people. I mean, maybe if there was something really compelling, but from the trailer, I don't see anything compelling. I just see kind of like just rehash. Like, okay, well, stuff is happening. There's a battle. This guy is the guy. You know, Pedro Pascal is in
Yeah.
it. Yet again, he's in another movie. That's fine. Okay. Like it's like that's it. So I give it a meh. It's like, whatever. You know,
I give it a man out of 10.
yeah, meh out of 10, right? So it
Yeah,
doesn't.
yeah. I mean, I did read through the comics, and I do agree. I mean, to be fair, I'm not a big fan of modern trailer music in general, or just the way modern trailers are done in general.
Yeah.
Just because I feel like everybody took the wrong lessons from what was the movie called Inception?
Uh
Because
huh.
like the way Inception kind of did its trailer music was like, oh, that's cool, and then you kind of saw, and then like everybody else started doing it. Where it's like, I don't even know what that effect's called, but you know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, yeah. That Hans Zimmer like hard, whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I hate it so much.
that's
And
true. Well, yeah, it gets so. I mean, that tends to happen, right?
well, I know, but like I think that
Imitation is
combined with the whole, uh, I don't know, I just feel like the pop music angle doesn't really fit
You mean for Gladiator 2?
semi historical drama about
It's kind of like
yeah
hip
ancient
hop or
Rome.
whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah, I agree. That does seem a bit like out of place. like
yeah,
I mean, it. If you listen to lyrics, you're kind of like, okay, I
yeah.
can
The
see
song
how it
itself
kind of
is
kind of fits. Yeah, but
isn't bad. I just yeah, I
then
don't know.
there's also the idea like, okay, so you have a black man, obviously main character, Denzel Washington, and you decide, hey, we need to put some hip hop into this
Well, I don't know if
because
that's
we
why
have
they did
a
it,
black.
but I mean,
That's kind of the impression you get, right? Like
in the yeah, but he's
because
not.
it didn't
Denzel
happen.
Washington isn't the protagonist though. It's the
Well, no,
gladiator
he's
dude.
clearly not the main protagonist, but he's definitely a key figure in the
Sure.
movie.
Yeah, and in defense to Denzel Washington's character, to my understanding, um, uh, M- uh, Marcus Macrinus is from. Uh, he was born in what we know today as Algeria. So that's like Northern Africa.
Sure. I mean,
Yeah. So.
that's not even the issue. I mean, there were black characters in the first one.
Oh, I know.
That's,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
so that's not even the fact that there's a black character. It's just that I'm talking about from the vantage point of the producers, etc., who are saying like putting this out and saying
What you thought? Like,
we got
oh,
to
we've
add
got
hip hop to this
the dude
when
from Training Day. Let's put it.
yeah, you understand what I'm saying? Because think about it. In contrast to the first movie, that wasn't the case, right? First movie, it was orchestral score, very fitting of the period piece that it was, right?
Yeah.
And epic music, etc. No pop music, no hip hop. It was very dramatic, epic score, very fitting. And then we get two, and all of a sudden we got Jay Z or Kanye or whatever, because there's and we just happen to have a black character that's a prominent character. You
You know,
understand what I'm
I
saying? It's
want to
kind of
say it's
like
coincidence, but I'm
I
reminded
hope
of
it is coincidence,
Well, here's the thing. I'm
but at the
reminded of.
same time, it's not logical either, right?
Well,
Because
that's
think
the thing,
about it.
though. There was an old commercial. It was a Pepsi commercial. It was like it was Beyonce and like two other pop singers from like the early 2000s. I don't remember their names, but but because Beyonce was in it, and they were all in gladiator getup, and they were trying. It was a Pepsi commercial, and
Mm.
they started singing "We Will Rock You." And the moment Beyonce starts singing, they lay over a hip hop beat over "We Will Rock You" because Beyonce was singing, and it was the dumbest thing I'd ever heard. And it's like, why would you do that? Like, just because, like, you know what I'm saying? So I wouldn't put it past, I guess, Hollywood or whatever you want to call it. But
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
just,
but
yeah.
but you just reinforcing what I'm saying, right? It's
Well, I
Beyonce.
know. I'm just
It
saying,
has to be
yeah.
pop or hip hop. It's kind of like, well, why, right? And so that's, I mean, I admit when I first saw it, I'm like thinking, yeah, like it sounds cool, for the trailer, but it's like, yeah, but why?
I
Like,
just
why
didn't
is
think
that?
it's.
What's the
Yeah.
logic behind versus maintaining? To me, it's a step down, right? You're already doing a sequel, which is a step down. The fact that you thought the first movie needed a sequel or deserved a sequel, right? But then on top of that, you drop a trailer and you throw hip hop music in as part of the score. It's kind of like what? Like that's several steps down. Not denigrating hip hop itself as a genre, but it doesn't correlate
No,
with
no, hip hop's fine,
the,
but
the
not
subject of
everything
the
needs
film,
hip
right?
hop.
That's what I mean. The very aesthetic of the film doesn't correlate with hip hop. Like I don't think
Yeah.
hip hop when I see a trailer in the Roman Empire and the Gladiator games. Unless it was some kind of like weird spin or something. Kind of like what was the movie? I think it was called First Night. You ever see that one?
First night. You mean the Black Knight?
No, First Night. Although that's a
Okay.
good example
I
too
thought you thought with what's his name?
with Martin Lawrence.
Yeah. No, I never seen First Night.
No, no, it's not First Night. What was it called? Oh man, um, it'll come to me when I stop thinking about it. But it
Yeah.
was a movie where it's about a guy who wants to become a knight and win his
Oh,
jousting
you're talking
contest.
about was it
See, you know what I'm
we
talking about. You
will
can't think of it either.
yeah, I love that movie. We will rock
Yeah,
you.
yeah, it's a great movie.
Like jousting. It was the jousting movie, yeah.
Yes, exactly. It was a jousting movie,
Um
and
A
and
Knight's Tale. Yeah, A
A
Knight's
Knight's
Tale.
Tale. That's
Yeah, it
it.
was
A Knight's
awesome.
Tale.
Yeah, but here's okay.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing. So that movie was not trying to be like it was like let's make a football movie, but have it take place in medieval times, right? So it was like it was supposed to be campy, right?
No, I agree. That's my point.
That's a little different.
It wasn't about historical accuracy. It wasn't the historicity
Mm,
of knights and jousting. It was a fun movie that happens during that time period, right? Where there's a story about a guy who, of meager means, right? His father is I guess was disgraced knight or something like that, or
mhm.
injured or something like where he. So he wanted to become, he wasn't nobility, and only knights could be like, you had to come from a certain lineage and all this kind of stuff. And so he kind of faked it till he made it, and he
Yeah,
gets
yeah,
this
I remember that.
ragtag motley crew of friends who help him do it, help him pull it off, right? And it's just a fun movie. And yeah, they actually have sort of rock and roll music, but the way they did it was very clever, right? It still sounded
Well,
like
I think rock
somewhat
and roll
period,
still
you know.
fits
Yeah,
because there's a lot
well,
of like old school rock and roll was very like fantasy and medieval
well, that's what I'm
inspired,
saying. It has
so
the
it
type of music
fits.
they use had the tone of that of that century, but
Yeah.
also they sang "We Will Rock You." It was awesome, but it was very
Yeah.
fitting, because it wasn't something that was supposed to be taken seriously like that,
Yeah.
right? And that was kind of the point, and you understood that, right? Like, this is just a fun story about a guy who becomes a knight, right? And it's a fun take on that concept, and it worked. And compare that to Gladiator, it's like, well, that's not what's happening, right? They're not saying, hey, what if we did this sort of urban take on the Gladiator theme or something? You know, that would be different, right? It might even be interesting, but it's like that's not what they're doing. So why are you injecting it in there? Like, especially because it's just so diametrically different, right? It's a stark contrast because hip hop is decidedly and necessarily modern. It's a modern thing, and I always feel like hip hop is future music, not past music, right? That's kind of how I look
That's
at it.
fair. Yeah.
Hip hop is music for of the future, meaning that it's always future forward, right? Even though
Hmm.
it pulls from the past, through samples and everything, right? It's still a music of the future, and so
Oh, yeah, that makes
I would
sense.
see hip hop's in something that's more contemporary, and far more fitting. Like I said, there's exceptions. Like if you do something like A Knight's Tale, obviously you can make an exception, or The Black Knight with Martin Lawrence.
Yeah.
The fact that it was this, fish out of water story, right?
Yeah.
In a kind of a big fish out of water, like
Yeah.
a huge contrast, right? Because Martin Lawrence is Martin Lawrence, and he's hilarious, and unapologetic, you know, and so it once again that worked pretty well, because his character is an urban character, right? And so you
Yeah.
throw this urban. It's not just a modern character; it's an modern urban character thrown into the past, the King Arthur days, and so this is stark contrast. Like it's a jarring contrast. So you can have a lot, and they did have a lot of fun with it. I actually like that movie, so
Yeah. That
because
movie's awesome.
it's a fun movie. Actually, it actually uh, it's very entertaining.
Yeah.
So, but it's like, yeah, so throwing in like a little hip hop music in that, same thing. Contextually, it's like, yeah, it kind of makes sense, right? So that's all I'm saying. Like when it comes to Gladiator 2, I just feel like, yeah, it's a nitpick, but I think it's a valid nitpick. Where it's like, yeah, why are you using hip hop? Especially in the trailer, it's kind of like, huh? So I don't know. It's like, what do you? I don't know. I'm a little suspicious of sort of the messaging, but I'll save that for when it actually drops. The movie actually comes out, and I have a chance to actually see it for myself to see kind of what's the message. Because I have a suspicion it's going to be current day references in this, and having the hip hop music in the trailer kind of is indicative of that. That, oh, there might be more current day references in this film. So we'll see. You know, but yeah. Moving on. There's another trailer that dropped recently,
Oh,
and that
uh,
was,
Captain America: Brave New World.
yeah, kind of in the same vein
That was
as,
what?
huh?
Oh, I didn't hear you, but I was gonna say I thought it was cool. I mean, sans the whole like I didn't watch the Falcon and the Winter Soldier or anything like that. Um, I just
Okay,
wasn't.
yeah. I
I
watched
just
it.
I
I
stopped
watched it.
caring about.
Yeah, before I gave up on Disney Plus, I actually watched it, and I didn't like it.
So,
I actually liked it how it started because it
uh,
started with Falcon being Falcon, right? He was on missions. He was, doing the wings and everything. And I thought that's cool. I like that he's Falcon. I like that he gave up the shield and put it in the museum. I thought that was awesome. I didn't like that. Uh, you know, he took it back basically and became Captain America. It's like why? Like he should have just been the Falcon. You know. And I was hoping that maybe they would pass it on to Bucky, I guess, and he would become, in the series, but obviously that didn't happen. Um,
well, yeah, I mean, it
it's
happens
just,
in the comic books too. So, but
I know, but I don't think those comics did very well. I got to look it up, but I don't think those comics are very well received. So, uh, it's
but
like because no, because Captain America, it's not a mantle that gets passed down, right? It's never been known to be something like that. Yes, there's been other Captain Americas. There's been a black Captain America. I'm familiar with the history. But generally speaking, that's not the case. Not to mention, what my real gripe though isn't just that someone else takes over as Captain America. It's like fine, like I said, it should have been Bucky in my opinion. But what bothers me is why can't we get a Falcon movie? Like why can't Falcon just be Falcon? And we see his character evolve and grow and he becomes this great hero, right? Because how he started in Winter Soldier, right? He was just I guess sort of retired military guy or whatever, right?
yeah,
And he was helping other veterans, you know, readjust to life, right? And he meets Captain America. He's obviously inspired by Captain America, and he helps Captain America, right? And he does it by, and that's one of my criticisms of that movie. Excuse me, is they don't show him getting the wings. Like I don't know if they broke in somewhere and stole them back, or if he actually just had access and just went and got them and used them.
uh,
They
I don't
never
remember.
really. Yeah, I know because there's not a scene that he just says he drops it on the ground and shows like this,
Oh,
and they're
that's
like,
weird.
okay. And then the next scene, he has the wings, right? So it's like, okay, so we never got a real origins. Like, it would have been nice to have gotten, like, what was he doing? Like, was he part of some, like, a top secret experiment, like some type of military operation, et cetera, right? It's
Yeah,
like that would have been cool to see that kind of origin, how he became that and what it entailed and why he stopped. Like, what happened. And then beyond, right, to see him grow into beyond Endgame into this, to Falcon, into this hero, right, where you know he takes on the responsibility, sort of of protecting America, protecting the country, protecting the world, right. It's like that would have been really cool, and I feel like it shortchanges the character when like I hate race swaps. I hate Black Superman. I don't like stuff like that because it's like you're giving us seconds, sloppy seconds at that, right? You're saying that original black characters aren't good enough to put up there and stand shoulder to shoulder with these other characters, and that's not true, right? I hate what they did with Cyborg in the movies, right? He never got his own movie. He should have. Cyborg should have had his own movie. Why? Because he's an incredibly popular character, right?
yeah, and a
People
lot of
love
that
Cyborg thanks to
Teen Titans
the Teen
show.
Titans animated
Yeah,
series,
that was awesome.
both iterations, right? It's like what the heck are these guys thinking? Like same thing with John Stewart Green Lantern. Like so the Green Lantern is different, right? They've changed that around where it's not just one guy, it's multiple people, right? Great. So now we got a John Stewart. He gets presented in Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. He becomes a wildly popular superhero as well in his own right. So what do we get? We get Ryan Reynolds. Yeah, and I'm not dissing him or the movie wasn't that great, but it's like why didn't you
Well, I
do,
mean, he disses the movie, so I mean,
especially at that time when, more, and I saw the comments over and over. Like more people are like, "Yeah, why didn't they do John Stewart?" I'm more familiar
Yeah,
with him
yeah,
than
I am too. Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like it's like that makes more sense. And I'm not saying they shouldn't do Kyle Rayner or any of the other Hal Jordan, but it's like why aren't you at least putting him in the movie or hinting at it or something or it's like
yeah.
it's so ridiculous like the logic, but part of the logic, and I can say this from firsthand experience, there's a lot of people in Hollywood, um, they don't perceive black content as quality or as something that will make them money, right? Original black content, right? So they feel like they have to race swap, right? You have to use the IP and just inject black people into it, inject, uh, minorities into it versus why don't we seek out and promote, you know, um, and then the flip side is when they do present quote unquote original black content or minority, they ingest it with DEI nonsense, right? It has to
Mm.
be woke. It has to have social justice signaling and virtue signaling, And it's like
Well,
that's what happened with
I
like
mean,
what's the show? Black Lightning, right? It started off pretty strong, but eventually it faded away. Why? Because it kept rehashing SJW talking points. And it's like he doesn't have to be this urban hero that's always about the message or about my
well, I
people.
don't. I mean,
It's
my
like
problem
let him
with
be a
Black
hero that
Lightning wasn't really
does
that he
that
was an
that
urban
saves the
hero,
day.
though.
He just saves the day. He fights evil, right? He fights bad guys. He rescues people of any race. He's just a hero. He's not a black hero, right? And I don't know. It's really frustrating, you know.
Right, but I think well, that's the thing. I didn't really get any of the complaints you were talking about in this trailer, though. Like, I mean, to be
No, I'm
fair, I
not
don't
talking
read
about
the
this
comic
trailer
books.
specifically. I'm just thinking in general in
Well, I
regards
get that.
to why
For
don't we have a standalone Falcon movie?
I
And it's
mean,
because
this
they haven't presented this character in a light where he can be his own character. That's what I'm saying. It's like instead of just building up this character over time with a movie or even a series, right? It doesn't even have to
yeah.
be a big budget movie. It can be a
Uh,
series where you get to know this character and you develop him as a character. That's what I'm talking about.
yeah, I
Versus,
think that's
well, let's
fair.
just go
Yeah.
ahead and just race swap Captain America, and then he takes on the mantle, and it's like why we didn't no one asked for it. That's number one, and two, they were fans of the Falcon character already from the comics, right? He was already a great character that people loved, right?
Yeah.
So just build that out, build him into a great character, give him his own adventures, give him his own story arcs. That's what I'm talking about. You understand? Versus we'll just like tack him on to this other more well-known white character, you know, and he can ride the coattails of that character. It's like it's really insulting, and it's one of my
That's fair.
huge
I
pet
think
peeves.
I think in spite of that though, I did like the trailer. I thought it was pretty cool. Uh, I do I like I said I do feel the same way where I would have preferred that we explore. I forgot his real name, but I would have liked to explore the Falcon's character as just the Falcon, as opposed to having to live up to Captain America.
Well, that's the point I'm
But
making. That's what I'm
no,
saying.
I'm
Like,
agreeing with that point. But
yeah, why is he? Yeah.
I think in spite of that, I think the I don't know I don't know I I'm I don't feel any sort of I don't know I don't really like outside of that point I don't really feel anything negative towards what I've seen in the movie so far. Um, I'm excited to see because here's the thing. The other character that they're teasing is the Red Hulk, right? Which I completely missed that the fact that Harrison Ford's character. I forgot who the Red Hulk's actual other identity is, but I thought he was like a military general and not the president. But I think one of the things that they'll probably one of the things, I mean, if if the movie would be good, one of the things that I hope that they explore or they might touch on is the idea of the mantle, right? Because you've got two characters based off of pre-existing characters, right? The Hulk and Captain America, and the Hulk, both are good guys, the original characters, right? But then now you have the Red Hulk. Like the idea of the Red Hulk is, the Red Hulk thinks he's the hero because he's doing this for America, but he's actually the bad guy. And then Falcon actually is a good guy. So I think that could be I think that could be an interesting dynamic to explore. But I don't know because the Red Hulk.
Yeah, the Red Hulk's in it, and I mean that's kind of cool, I guess. Doesn't the General
But
become the Red Hulk?
well, that's the thing. That's what I said earlier. I thought originally it was like he was like the general as opposed to the president. I don't know if it's the same character.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering if it's going to be this one and the same,
Like
or it's going to be a
what's his
different.
name? Thaddeus
Yeah,
Ross.
yeah, that'd be
Um,
interesting. I
unless
mean,
unless unless what's his name? Harrison Ford is playing Thaddeus. Then
yes.
yeah,
So
that's okay. Okay, yeah. So yeah, so
that's
it's
what I'm
kind of
saying. So I
crazy.
wonder if that's one and the same, or if it's a different. Like
Well,
it's
I
not.
think it's the same person. I guess he just ran for president at some point.
No, I'm talking about who's going to be the Red Hulk. Like I'm wondering if it could be a different person that's going to be the Red Hulk. In other words,
Oh, I see. Well,
so we'll see. I don't know. It's I mean, I'm guessing that he tries to get the super serum for himself and
right.
decides to use it on himself, or someone uses it on him
Yeah, that
unwillingly, maybe
backfires and he turns
something.
into the
Yeah,
Hulk.
yeah, something like that. It's kind of predictable, but yeah, the trailer looks okay. Um, you know, I like the scene where he's flying, and he kind of takes off, like blasts off. That's kind of cool. Um, you know, it's just I don't know. I'm just like, why can't he just be the Falcon? Why can't just be a Falcon movie? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just it's so frustrating. I don't know. It's like, why are we doing this? Well, I know why, because a lot of those guys, a lot of people in Hollywood that's making these choices are inherently racist, in my opinion. So I honestly believe that, and they feel they have to pander to black people like children, rather than present black characters as as actual people, right? For whatever their reasoning is, it's just kind of backwards reasoning. So, but hopefully the movie's good. I kind of checked out of like all things Disney, Disney Marvel, Disney Star Wars. So,
Well, I mean, to be fair,
you
I
know,
mean, I kind of
we'll,
checked
we'll
out of
see.
Marvel after, uh, I mean,
I mean, I
the
checked out at
Thor
End
movies.
Game basically. You know,
Well, I mean,
that
yeah, me too. I mean, but even
and,
before
and
Endgame,
End Game
I
was barely tolerable. I mean, it was great. There's a lot of great payoffs.
yeah, let's
The
say that
whole
was a fun movie to
Captain
watch.
Marvel
It's not
stuff was like
perfect, but it
really
was at
annoying.
least a
Yeah,
fun movie.
it was a fun movie, and but yeah, the whole Captain Marvel thing really threw it off kilter, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, yeah, it was silly, but it didn't make up the whole movie though. But my
Thankfully,
my thing is, you know, I kind of stopped following Marvel movies after the first Hulk, to be perfectly honest. And I really didn't get back into Marvel movies until Guardians of the Galaxy. Guardians of the Galaxy is kind of what
yeah, that kind of
sort
makes
of.
sense because Guardians of the Galaxy, and I'll say all three of them are
Oh yeah,
excellent
that's their
movies.
best trilogy. And even
Definitely,
then, I wasn't watching every single Marvel movie back to back because I just didn't care. I just
yeah,
watched the ones
yeah.
that
I mean,
about the
for
heroes that
me,
I cared about.
yeah, it's definitely Guardians of the Galaxy, and then the Captain America trilogy. Like, two of the best ones.
That's fair.
Iron Man, I loved the
I like
first
the
one. And
first
the second
two.
one,
Didn't watch
third
the
one, I
third
didn't
one.
care for. While it has a cool scene at the end, yes, but overall the movie is kind of garbage. What they did with the Mandarin and everything was so stupid. Um, it's like, why even have him in there? Why not just have it just be that guy getting revenge? And just, if they had done that, I think I would like it a lot more. But
Hmm.
the fact that they destroyed the Mandarin character, it's like, what the hell are you doing, man? Like, it's like M Night Shyamalan, right? I don't like him anymore as a director. Why? Because he messed up what could have been something really cool
Are you
when
talking
he
about
did
the whole glass thing?
yeah, when he did Glass. It's like, yo, bro, what are you doing? Oh, he decides he wants to kill off everybody and basically uh, throw up a huge middle finger to people that actually like superheroes and superhero genre. And that
Or I guess
pisses
at
me off.
least the what was it? Indestructible, the first movie,
Unbreakable.
Unbreakable.
Yeah, which is a beautiful movie. It's a great movie, you know? And it's like, yo, man, like, why would you do something like that? To me, it's disgusting and despicable. You know, it's like these people. I don't know. They hate anything that's good, right? And I don't mean good as in like entertaining good. I mean good as in wholesome good or godly good. They hate it. That's why they're like, oh, let's go ahead and diss superheroes. Let's deconstruct them. Let's break them down. Let's make them look stupid. Um, you know, so we're gonna kill our unbreakable character in a puddle, right? Because it's deconstruction. It's like, get out of here with that nonsense, man. It's just
How did he
postmodern
die?
nonsense. He died in a puddle.
Right, but what happened to him?
He drowned in a puddle.
What? Like, how
You
did he
gotta
wait?
watch the movie. He drowned in a puddle
Right, but how did he get to that point
because
though?
apparently water is his weakness. So he,
Oh,
he gets drowned in a puddle. Like the
what?
cops
But that doesn't
throw
make
him
any
down on the
sense
ground.
though.
I know it's the most idiotic, but that's what happens.
I thought it was like you meant like it's. I thought it was like because I remember seeing some of Brave. I thought it was like a Luffy thing where he just can't swim.
That was it. That was
Right,
supposed
but
to be.
Luffy wouldn't drown in
I
like.
know it's idiotic. That's what I'm saying, man. I hate that movie, and I hate him as a director. I really don't like him as a director. I don't know him as a person. I'm not saying as a person he's a terrible. I don't know, but as a director, and the fact that he made that decision to crap on his own movies, his own characters that he created, because people were getting into it and actually enjoying it and looking forward to like maybe there being some type of original superhero universe or a franchise. It's like, you can miss me, man. I don't watch any of his movies ever anymore since that. I don't care. I don't care how good it is. I'm not gonna watch it, and I don't go back and watch any of his past movies, no matter how
Well,
much I like them.
I kind of felt the same
He,
way
yeah,
when I
I'm done.
saw Last
He's
Airbender. So I mean, I
Yeah,
can't
yeah,
really.
he's dismissed. Yeah, it's like, yo, bro, you had an opportunity to do something really awesome where it wasn't about mimicking Marvel, right? It was about saying, let me do something that's better. Let me tell better stories. Let me tell a story that celebrates heroism but does it in a more grounded way, right? Like that would have been really cool, and he missed that opportunity to do that. And instead, he rather just throw a middle finger to people that actually enjoy that. And that's what I'm saying. It's like that's what he did. So it's like, all right, so you can miss me. I'm not going to support your stuff. So yeah, it's frustrating because there's a lot of people in entertainment and in Hollywood, quote unquote, that have that kind of attitude, right? And we're seeing it all the time with a lot of these movies, especially with Star Wars, how they respond to fans and fan criticism, right? And it's like, okay, so your attitude is, shut up and just like it, right? Shut up and just consume it. It's like, no, we want quality. We want something that's good, right? And it's your job to give us that. And when you don't, we're not going to support it, you know? So, so yeah, we'll see, with this next Captain America: Brave New World. Um, yeah, hopefully, like I said, maybe it'll be good. I don't think so, um, because the track record isn't very good so far, right? It hasn't been. So, you know, but moving on. Uh, there was something else you wanted to touch on.
Well, yeah. So, a lot of I was watching this YouTube video, and it kind of brought up a point that I've heard a lot over the years, where you see a lot of there's a lot of media out there about sort of these or like this sort of heroic anti-establishment takes on tyranny basically,
Right.
and a lot of people enjoy a lot of anti-establishment content, but don't actually embrace the values in reality, right? So like Star Wars is obviously the biggest example. Um,
Yeah.
I remember watching an interview with George Lucas, and he was talking about how the rebels were based off of the Taliban. I could, if anybody could find the video of what I'm talking about, but yeah, stuff like that, or Hunger Games, right? It's a story about how wealthy people watch poor people kill themselves,
Hmm.
and for entertainment. The Gladiator. We literally just talking about the Gladiator.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, a bunch of stuff, but people aren't willing to sort of embrace those messages in real life. And I kind of I like on one hand I get where that's coming from because you know I think a lot of people I do think people um are complacent, and
Hmm.
I'm people, right? I'm not gonna. I don't like to sit. I don't like to sit from a high horse. But at the same time, though, it's like, um, I feel like people don't actually recognize who- what what real tyranny looks like, right?
Yeah, that's exactly
Um,
right. Yeah.
and I think you brought it up the last time, or when I showed you the video, where it's like, I mean, throughout history, people have rebelled against tyranny and stuff like that. And
Right.
I think
Yeah.
the issue is with today, because of the way the current zeitgeist is, people are they're they're revolting against the wrong. Like they don't actually. It's like they don't. Yeah, it just feels like they're revolting after the wrong people. I don't like the. I guess the
Well,
what.
yeah, I know what you're saying. It's like it's not even the wrong people per se. It's they have wrong ideas, right? Like we can go back to the Occupy Wall Street, right? That big old protest where you had all these young people who were angry because they had all this college debt and it's not fair, and I can't pay it back, and it's kind of like, okay, and now rightfully so they were upset with the bankers, right? The banks that gave them these loans and these interest rates, and and it's like, oh, you guys are getting wealthy off of us being debt slaves, and it's like, yeah, there's some validity to a lot of that, but the reality though is you chose to take out that loan, you chose to go into debt, right? It's the whole idea of buyer beware. And that's where it gets lost, right? Because for many of them, they think they're rebelling against capitalism, right? And the reality is, well, you're not rebelling against capitalism, right? You're rebelling against corruption and cronyism, right? And that's good. But what happens is it gets blanketed as capitalism or the rich, right? And then in the minds of a lot of the talking heads who espouse this rhetoric, the rich is anybody that makes a certain amount of income, right? Like it's like you're getting mad at people for being successful, right? You're getting mad at a business for being a business, and like here in California, right? There's a sentiment towards that's it's been going on for a long time, but 2020 lockdowns really kind of exemplified it, right? And exacerbated it, which is that landlords are greedy and they're corrupt, and how dare they evict people for not paying rent when it's hard, hard to pay rent and people are struggling. And it's like, yeah, but a lot of the landlords, I mean, the vast majority of them are just regular people, right? They're not these rich robber barons that live up a hill in a big castle. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
they're regular people that go to work still, and despite owning a property, still have to go to work and work a job, right? Like they're trying to save for retirement. They're trying to save to pay for their kids' college education or something, or or just afford to life itself for themselves, right?
yeah, I
So
get that. I
you
guess
know,
what
or go
I
ahead. I'm sorry.
mean is no, it's all right. I just like I remember it's like I remember this happened during the whole thing with like riots, right? I remember like watching videos of the Rodney King riots, and
Yeah,
like you know if you're upset with uh the way the government handles you know I guess police work and holding police accountable and stuff like that. Why are you attacking regular people and regular
right,
businesses? You know what I'm
right.
saying? And
Yeah,
it's not like the what's it called? Because it was that was more of the to my understanding the straw that broke the camel's back, right? Because there was also the whole situation with like the Asian supermarket incident where
yeah, yeah,
Cello
yeah.
girl, like that's awful.
Right, right. And that was
but,
a
but
terrible situation.
yeah,
And
but then like I remember watching a video where this old black man is like, why are you just? He's just yelling at like everybody else because they're destroying his shop, and he's like,
right.
what did I do?
Well,
Like, you
but
know what I mean?
that's the thing, though, right? That's what that's another frustration is
And that's something that still
justification
happens.
of extreme violence against just random people and businesses because a person was mistreated by police, right? A person was it when you think about it, it's ridiculous, right? And
Yeah,
it's
it's like
clear
they
that,
never direct their anger towards the actual
well, it's not even that,
cause
right?
of.
Like I think that's a flawed reasoning, right? Because it's not about lashing out, right? Like lashing out is absurd.
I mean,
Um,
that's fair, but
because
I'm just saying
what
I
I'm
get
saying
that.
is it's
On top of that, they
opportunism.
lash
It's not.
out at people that have
I know
nothing to
they
do with
they
the
lash out
situation.
at their neighbors, but what I'm saying is it's opportunism, right? It's not. You're not really expressing a frustration against government or against corruption. You're simply taking the opportunity to lash out because you have something in you that is pissing you off, right? And for many, like we go back to the 2020 BLM riots and things like that, right? Sure, there were peaceful protesters um, in the midst who, it would start off as just people marching, but then there's always agitators, right? And look, let's be honest, some of the protesters turned into rioters, right? Not every protester though was a rioter. That's clear, but it's never justified. And unfortunately, so-called leaders try to justify it, try to rationalize it, right? And saying, oh, this is what the how people express their anger. This is how It's like, no, it isn't. That's absurd, right? You don't burn down a grocery store or a gas station or a auto zone, right? Like that's just depravity. You
Yeah,
you understand? Like, and it's insulting. when you try to characterize it as the way black people express themselves or the way black people, uh, respond to injustice. Like, no, it isn't, right? As people, right? Because black people are people, right? And there's plenty of intelligent black people who understand the idea of justice, right? And so it's like in the rule of law, right? So to try and rationalize riots and it's ridiculous, and that's what I'm saying. And it's never strategic in the sense of they're targeting actual perpetrators, right? The actual officers or the actual government people, politicians, etc. It's like, no, it's just random nonsense, right? And I think it's strategic in other ways because I do believe that a lot of this are these they're paid agitators. They're paid to go into these areas, these protests, and start something, right? Get people riled up, and why? Because it's a lot of moving parts. I think part of it is economics. There's people who are like, hey, let's drive down property values so we can go in and just buy it all up cheap, right? There's others who have their own agenda, political agenda or whatever. And if we do this, that will drive this idea further in the media, right? So I think there's a lot of that behind why these riots happen, and you can say it's conspiracy, but as we've learned since 2020, a lot of conspiracy has become fact, right? So and I think that's something that eventually we'll start to see. And a lot of people have already seen it, seen evidence of. You see ads that are recruiting people for quote unquote protests. They're actually paying people to protest. Like this is it's not it's kind of this open secret now. But getting back to the point, it's like, yeah, in media we accept rebellion against authoritarianism, right, and tyranny, right? But in reality, it appears that we accept it. Well, because the reality is that, especially in the West, specifically in America, we're not exactly under tyranny, at least not yet, right? We're starting to see tyrannical things, right? There's tyrannical laws and policies in place, right? The Patriot Act is one of them, right? It's like, yeah, those things are in place, but because they're not being enacted in mass, right? And our lives are not directly affected, it makes it difficult to say we need to fight back, right? Because there's a huge disconnect, right? It's always something happening over there, right? In that state or that city or that neighborhood. But where I am, well, my four walls are fine, right? you know,
Yeah,
that's part of it. And yeah, I think there's a valid point to be made that, yeah, people are somewhat comfortable. But I think also it's the fact that it hasn't reached that boiling point yet either,
yeah.
right? So it's
Well,
not just
I
that
also
people are
think,
complacent. It's that you look at, American Revolution, where, people were
hmm,
complacent for a bit and then they raised taxes, right? You understand? Like,
yeah,
and so they had a small group rebel, right, and kind of in protest, but then that inspired others to continue the protest, right, and we get the Declaration of Independence and so forth and so on, right? So and that all that took time. It didn't happen like overnight in one day or one
yeah,
week.
that's
It
true.
took years to
Well, I also think,
culminate to a revolution, to an actual
yeah,
war, right? So yeah, go ahead, I'm sorry.
no, you're fine. I was just gonna say, I also think, I can't speak for everybody, but I think there are also people that understand that fighting corruption isn't just lashing out or fighting, right? There's more than one way to fight against corruption, right? One of my favorite movies is remember Robots with Robin Williams?
Yeah, I do actually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I still think I watched it a couple months ago, and I was like, yeah, this is still a cool movie, and because the main character Rodney, his whole thing was he wants to be an inventor, like Big Well, and you find out Big Well was uh, basically sort of kicked out or voted out of his own company, taken over by this dude who was like, yeah, we're gonna make these new robot parts, that are super expensive and only built for a specific type of robot that looks and so everybody else in Robot City couldn't afford the new robot parts, and they were getting swept up into the underground garbage layer and stuff like that.
Yeah,
This whole
right.
thing. But
People
Rodney's but
affected.
what
Yeah,
happened is Rodney was like, well, hey, I'll just fix you, right? So he becomes even though he doesn't get to join Bidwell's company, he becomes uh he becomes the thing. uh he embodies the model that Bigwell has, right, which is see a need, fill a need, right?
right,
And he basically starts his own business fixing robots in Robot City, right?
right.
And
Yeah, that's capitalism.
it's like, yeah, and it's like, it's a cool. I think it's a cool. Uh, I think it's a great moral and message, because it's like, yeah, if you gotta be the answer, right? Sometimes
Right.
the
Be
answer
the
isn't,
solution.
if
Yeah.
if you don't have a seat at the table, build your own table. And it's obviously, the big old comes back, and the good guys win. But I think the scene where he's fixing all the robots by himself with his friends, I thought that was really cool, because you see him carry out the message that he grew up with a bit, which is, like I said, seeing each other. So stuff like that, and you see
Yeah.
that in real life, right? You see entrepreneurs, and I'm not
Right.
talking about like super
But
rich
that's a
people, but like,
yeah. But that's a good example that you robots because I'm sorry to cut you off, but it's
no, you
like
good.
it's a very important point that that movie is very capitalistic, and I think we need more stories like that versus what we get, which is there's the sort of underlying or undertone is usually anti-capitalist, and even the video you're referring to, where the gentleman talks about, um, you know, the idea of accepting rebellion in movies versus in real life. It's like he kind of misses the point because it's like, well, people aren't accepting, aren't rejecting rebellion. What they're doing is they're living, right? Because rebellion isn't,
Yeah.
like rebellion isn't the answer always, like you said, to corruption. A lot of times the answer is simply leave it alone, like let it go.
Well, it's not even just that. Rebellion
Disconnect
doesn't
yourself.
always look like fighting. That's kind of what I
Right, that's
mean.
what I'm saying. It can look like, why don't you just do what you want to do, detach from this system, right? Detach from this
Yeah.
culture, and join a culture that exemplifies the values and principles that you want to live by, right? And a lot of times, people are doing that for the most part until they get infringed upon by tyrannical laws and rules and
Right.
regulations. And
I,
then you start to
yeah.
see pushback. You start to see people fight, and they fight. First, they fight with pen and pencil, right? They fight with their voices. They fight with following the rules, right? With policy and bureaucracy, right? And when that doesn't work, that's when you start to get physical. That's when you get
Right.
violence, right? And that's happened in recent years, right? Remember the Bundy Ranch standoff and all that stuff. I mean, that was the Bureau of Land Management trying to take someone's property, like literally take their land, their
Oh,
cattle and stuff.
I
It's
remember
like,
reading about that. Yeah.
and they lost. The government, they eventually ended up in court, and I believe they eventually won. It was a hard fought, uh, you know, uh, um, situation, but they did endure. Sadly, I believe one of them, I think it was the father, yeah, passed away. He was killed. Um, but it's like people
Oh, wow.
do fight back. They do push back, but it's not going to always be this, like we see in the movies, where it's this huge revolution and people are just in the crowd, in the streets, and they're taken down, like Hunger Games,
Right.
right? It's not always just one person. That's number one. It's not just one person, that you can just point the finger and go, "That's because of that guy," right? And tyranny is something that's not. Uh, It's not always like we look at history and we'll go Mao Zedong, right, and Hitler, and say it's because of those men, those
All right.
individuals.
Well, it's not just
But
one person.
yeah, it wasn't just them, right? It was the entire system that they were a part of, right? That uh, allowed them to push a certain ideology, right? But there were people, individuals who were part of this machine that carried it out, right? You look at the Holocaust, and you look at, what's happened in China. It's like it's one man isn't going to do that. It's a system that does it, right? And that individual is propped up by the system. You see what I mean? He becomes a
Hmm.
figurehead, right, of it. But it's not just because of that one person. And we tend to, like we're doing it now with the president and elections. And we think one man is going to
Yeah,
do all
that's what
these
was.
things, whether good or bad. And it's like, it's that's not how it works.
Yeah, that's what
The
I always
government is
tell
made up
people.
of
It's like,
hundreds of thousands of people.
yeah, it's like the government consists more of just Trump and
It's that one
Biden.
guy.
You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Yeah. I think it's kind of ridiculous, right?
And
So
even like I don't know if you remember the when he did that Freudian slip where he was like, "Oh, that's above my pay grade." Like, I don't think that was just him being senile. I mean, it was, but I feel like there's a lot of truth
yeah,
in it. There's a lot of
right.
truth to
There's a
that.
lot of truth in that, though. Yeah, I agree. I agree. It's like, yeah, we
It's
love
like
to have a
people,
figurehead, but the reality is quite different. It's this guy is
yeah,
not necessarily even Trump. Trump is coherent, sure, but he's not calling the shots. What I mean, like when he was president, he wasn't calling all the shots. I don't think any president is ever calling all the shots.
no, of
Right? There's
course
always
not.
committee. There's always bureaucracy. You understand? And there's always someone. And this is what I think is the real culprit are the bureaucrats in government, not necessarily the elected official, although they're just as bad. But I don't think they're the problem. The problem with the politicians is their reflection of our own corruption and depravity, right? Because we keep choosing them, right? We vote for them despite their enormous flaws and foolishness. So
Yeah,
that's on us. But the
that's true.
bureaucrats are the ones that are pushing through policies and regulations and enforcing those things. That's really the issue is the bureau. A lot of times, especially when it comes to um, certain regulations and policies that get enforced and imposed on us, like taxation, right? The problem isn't the president with taxation. Sure, you can raise or lower taxes, right? You can encourage Congress to pass some kind of tax bill and all this kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, taxation is theft, right? So, it's the IRS and
Mm.
the other bureaucrats working there that are enforcing these unjust rules and laws. You understand, like where there's these true believers that really believe they own half of your income, right? They own your labor, right? So that's the problem. It's not just that someone voted for this guy, you know, you know what I mean? I mean, sure, if everyone voted for the right person that said, you know, we're going to lower taxes and or eliminate taxes, and we're going to get rid of all these unnecessary laws and rules and bureaucracy, and make life easier for the everyday American. You know, yeah, that would be great. But then the question is, would it happen? Right? Just because they're in office, right? They still have to fight the bureaucrats. They still have to deal with all that those people that are embedded in government that are carrying out these things, right? That's those are your those are your true enemies, right? When it comes to government corruption, you know,
Yeah,
is the politicians play a huge hand, of course, but um, it's also the unelected positions that are a problem as well, right? So, but yeah, and I think yeah, there's some complacency in our modern times, but I don't believe that it's um, people just turning a blind eye per se. I think a lot of people do, but I think it's like I said, people are just trying to live, right? And it's when we're all sort of our rights are infringed upon in mass, right? Yeah, you'll start to see pushback. You saw pushback back in 2020 and 21 with the lockdowns. A lot of people pushed back on that. Thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people across the country
Mm.
push back against those ridiculous mandates and policies and all, and so yeah, so that the idea that people aren't willing to fight back, you know, or rebel against tyranny is really false. It's a false notion. It's not true. It's just because you think you're not seeing it. I think part of the issue is that people who hold to that view is that they're not looking for it, and when it is when it is present, because it doesn't support their existing ideology, sort of the confirmation bias, right? Then they don't count it, right? It's like, well, you're on the left, so your rebellion doesn't count, or you're on the right, so your rebellion isn't real, or it's not valid. And so you don't see that. Well, yeah, but they're both pushing back against a tyrannical policy or unjust system, right?
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
I also, like I said, it's also the other layer of well, it goes back to the whole see a need, feel a need thing. I mean, it's a real thing. It's the whole concept of mothers and the necessity, right? One of the things that don't get talked about, I personally think enough, is not just over here in America, but in in Africa as well. There's a company where they created, because people, they're concerned about the environment, and they're like they created this. There's this one company that created like charcoal out of manure, basically, and it like burns cleaner and stuff like that. And
hmm.
that sounds crazy, but it's like they just solved the problem. Or like I remember watching uh, there's one video about, I wish I remember which country in Africa it was, but they were basically going around collecting people's like coconut shavings, right, and recycling them into different stuff. You
Really,
know,
coconut shaving.
yeah, it's like that's awesome because coconut it's wood, coconut's wood. You know,
Yeah, essentially, yeah.
people
It's
and
right.
over there, people eat coconuts all the time. So it's like,
Right.
yeah,
So
that
it's
makes
all over the
sense.
place. Yeah, that's a good point.
So it's like people. It's like I said, it's not just change. Doesn't just look like fighting but it looks like people seeing issues and finding a creative way to solve problems.
Yeah, it's like that
And
meme. It's like it says this is what people think rebellion is, and it shows like rioters, and then it shows another image, and it's like this is what actual rebellion is, and it shows a garden in your front yard.
well,
And it's
well,
like, yeah, that is actual rebellion, like planting a garden in your yard, in your front yard at that. Because in a lot of communities, if you're not a homeowner, a lot of communities you're not allowed to plant gardens, especially actual food gardens. And I don't mean just flowers, but
oh yeah,
you're not allowed
yeah,
to plant like vegetables and cabbage, tomatoes, whatever, in your front yard. Like that's a huge no-no, especially if you're in a gated community. But even in non-gated communities, that's seen as very unusual, or it would be shunned by your neighbors a lot of times. And in some cases, you might even be fined. Like I've read articles
yeah,
about how people have did just that, and because they maybe didn't have a big backyard, or they just wanted a big garden, so they did the front and the back, and they get fined for having a garden in their front yard, right? Versus just having
yeah,
grass that does nothing for you, right? And it's like, yeah, that is actual rebellion. And you're right,
right,
it's like it's not always this violent, at least it doesn't have to start with violence, right? It can
no,
start with simply saying, I'm going to, the word nullify, right? And I got a jury summons
hmm,
recently. And I always think about that jury nullification, right? And the idea is that a jury has the authority when they're, presiding over a trial to kind of ignore the law, right? Based on, the context of the case, right? And so that means if someone they believe, yeah, they technically violated the law, but because of this context, whatever that may be, you can make an exception, right? Because of these extenuating circumstances, whatever. So they can actually kind of nullify the law, in other words, and come up with their own conclusion or their own verdict. And I think that's the key with everything in this country, at least, is to nullify, those laws that we understand are unjust, right? Like a big example is Jim Crow, right? A lot of people nullified Jim Crow and they associate it with the opposite race anyway, right? They had, they especially businesses, a lot of businesses, a lot of people don't know, but at least don't talk about it. A lot of businesses did patronize black customers, right? And they didn't have separate but equal. They just said, "Hey, come on in and sit down, and we'll serve you," right? Um, so that's nullification right there. That's rebellion. Simply ignoring the law and saying that's an unjust law. I'm not going to give it credence. Here we go, and whatever the consequences be, what they're, I mean, that's what the whole sit-ins were. They were literally nullifying that law, right? When they sat at
Yeah,
the counters and said, "Well, we're going to sit here anyway, despite what the law says," right? And that's what that is, right? That's rebellion,
yeah,
right? Now, granted, yeah, that did turn violent for on many instances, right? But at the same time, that's literally what, because just the same, the business owner and the workers there could have said, "Okay, we're going to serve you anyway," right? And had that happened, probably would have been like, and I'm sure that may have happened in certain regions, where they were like, "Fine, you know, we're going to serve you. Right? We're going to allow you to patronize." So yeah, I think that's the key. Is at least at the beginning is, yeah, just nullify.
yeah.
Ignore
Also,
unjust
the
rules
guy
and
I was
regulations.
telling you about, Amish Kampombe, he's from Kenya. He's the guy who's
Okay,
recycling coconuts into different products, bricks and charcoal. So
that's
pretty cool.
awesome. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
amazing. Yeah. So yeah, it's like that's it's simple, but it's not always easy, of course. But it is a simple concept. But the problem is, I think we've been so over the years indoctrinated with the opposite view that it always has to be this collective solution, right? But the solution to collectivism is individualism, right? Us thinking for ourselves and then willfully cooperating with one another, right? That's the solution. Is uh, work together, but voluntarily, like not by force of government, right? So, yeah, it's like it'll be nice to to really inculcate the population with ideals of liberty, right, and what it actually is it's not the government just enforcing some law, right? That's not liberty. That's the opposite. you know uh, so rebellion, yeah, I think people rebel all the time, right?
yeah,
As individuals, as small groups, right? And but ultimately, yeah, I mean, in reality, we don't want another French Revolution, right? Like you see online, at least, mentions of race wars, things like that. We don't want a race war, right? People who encourage it or talk about it as if it's an inevitability are foolish, in my opinion, because um, it's not going to bode well for anybody, right? I mean, like
yeah,
it's just because you think, well, like you said, I've seen white commentators on Twitter or something say, "All right, you want a race war? There's more of us and all this kind of stuff, and we're armed." And, it's like, yeah, I mean, I'm sure that's we're black people are only 13% of the population, so yeah, you definitely have a majority. Um, but the reality is that regardless of that stat, right? Why would you want that, right? You know what I mean? Like it's
yeah.
absurd. And I've
It's
seen black commentators say that similar, like, "Oh, we're armed, we're strapped up, we're this and that."
yeah,
And it's like
it's
you're
you.
foolish,
Yeah,
because
it's funny that you mentioned that because literally, have you seen Spy X Family yet?
oh yeah, yeah, I have.
Okay, have you? I don't know. Have you finished it or you just seen?
Yeah, I finished it up to I think season 3, right? Something like that.
Oh, okay, yeah. So there's a scene. There's an episode where because it's like fictional Cold War.
Yeah, that's
It's
right.
cool. So there's a scene where like they're trying to stop. these terrorists, and they're all young people, right? And they're like, "Yeah, we won a war, because screw the West or whatever it is," and like, all the adults, right, all the spies are people who actually lived through the war, and they're calling these young people stupid, right, on their on their BS because it's like you don't actually know what war looks like. Why would you want? Why? You know what I mean? Because
Yeah,
like they had to fight or like survive, and so they all know. So they're like, yeah, we would rather solve this peacefully. Why would you want to instigate? You know what I'm saying? But because in the
yeah.
young people's mind, it's like, oh, well, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So it
it's
feels
absurd.
like the same kind of mentality where it's like a lot of people like I don't know. I don't say a lot of people, but I have heard that sentiment where it's like people are like they talk about race war, just war in general, especially the whole race war thing. And it's like, do you like do you know like you like yeah, just you know how to shoot a gun, but that doesn't mean you've actually had to. You've never been forced to kill a person. You know what I mean? You've never
Yeah,
had to.
there's so much, there's a lot of
There's a
nuance
lot
in
of
it.
more
It's
layers than just knowing how to fire a gun, right?
yeah, yeah,
Like when I was in the when I was in the Air Force. God, I, didn't, I really hope I didn't have to bring this up, but
uh,
when I was in boot camp, you had to learn how to fire a gun, but you
yeah,
also had to learn to because we had to learn how to do security, and like they tell you, yeah, don't hesitate if they ignore the like basically if they don't listen to you the first time, shoot them. And like I failed my first time
yeah.
because I don't
You want to
like
shoot somebody? Yeah,
yeah
yeah. You have a
so it's like
conscience.
yeah so it's
Yeah,
like
exactly.
it's not like people I don't they just don't
Especially
they don't
because
think about
you
those
know
things,
that your life isn't really on the line in that moment,
right?
and yeah, in a real life situation, you're gonna react how you're gonna react, right? You know, and but you're going to deal with the consequences of that, right? And it is traumatizing. Talk to any, I mean,
Yeah, talk
anyone
to
who's
any
ever
yeah keep in mind
fought an actual
I'm
war.
not saying that
you know
like because like I've seen real kind not I'm going to say
yeah, I
that I
know,
haven't
I'm saying you're
you
right.
know
It's like it's not the same, and it is hard. It's a difficult thing. And like I said, people, just like a lot of people are gung-ho about going to war, like Ukraine and all that. It's like, listen, man, the last thing anybody should ever want is war, right? Because it does not benefit you the way you think it will, right?
no
And I'm talking about just regular people. I'm not talking about elites and all this kind of, it benefits them because they have investment. They benefit, right? These big companies and corporations that produce the military weapons and all that, they love it. They love war, right? That's how they make a lot of their money. But when I hear regular people, you know, and that includes a lot of the media talking heads talking about, war and, pounding the drums of war. And, it's like, you're foolish. You're
yeah
foolish. And you're leveraging the lives of young men and women as well. What for an idea, for, back in the day, it was for oil and, all this nonsense and Bush's ego. And, now, who knows why, yeah,
yeah
and
yeah
I
it's
think it's just money
ridiculous.
laundering, to be perfectly honest. What's happening
Yeah,
with Ukraine
I
is
mean, I
laundering.
mean, I'm reminded of uh, once again one of my favorite shows of all time, Mash, and there's a really famous scene where uh, uh, Pierce asks the chaplain, who goes to hell, and he says, "Well, sinners do, of course." And he's like, "Right, there's no innocent bystanders in hell, but war is chock full of them." And it's like,
Yeah, yeah,
well, I mean, what else do you say to that?
yeah, because that's
It's
facts.
like, yeah, it's
Because
like,
if you're in hell, you know why you're there,
yeah,
right? There's no excuses. There's no like, wait a minute, right? There's been a
hmm
mistake, But
right,
yeah, if you're in war, you're innocent, but you're just living, and that's what I'm saying. It's yeah, it's really frustrating when I hear people flippantly talk about war and about going to war. I used to hear that a lot in the '90s. These neocons, who loved war. And now it seems like the script has been flipped. You have a lot of people on the other side, among the Democrats who they want war also now. All of a sudden, it's like these people are just evil.
I
Like
mean, I
you
get.
know,
I feel like it's a mixed
like
bag, but
it is. It's evil to want to go to war is evil.
no, I
Um,
agree. I'm just
to
saying,
have to
like,
go to war is very different, right?
yeah,
Like if you're a soldier, you don't really have a choice, right? I mean, yeah, you can, uh, uh, to, become MIA or whatever, but at the end of the day,
don't
you don't have a choice.
do
But,
that.
but as a leader, and you're sending young men to die, you better make sure they're dying for a good reason, a damn good reason, and that's it, period. You know, you know what I'm saying? Like if I die protecting my family, right? That's a damn good reason,
Yeah,
right? Somebody tries to break in my house and I got to lay down my life gladly, right? Because my family is a good reason.
yeah,
You understand? Like,
yeah,
that's what I'm saying. And sadly, with these wars, it's like, what are we doing here? Like, why are we sending troops over there? Like who are we protecting? Then you know, and forgive us for getting so political. So because I'm like, yeah, this is crazy, man. It's the world is so topsy turvy. Um, sending troops overseas, but our borders are open, wide open. It's like
Well, I mean, at the end of
it's
the day, I
insane.
think the
It's
lesson
insanity.
here is that the change starts at home
It
and
does. It does start at home. It
starts with
starts with
one
us.
person at a time.
Yeah, and like I said, nullification. You know, get out of it as much as you can. Right. A lot of people don't have that luxury, unfortunately, to they're privileged to be able to kind of step out of this system and be, live free. And what I mean is, for some that means moving somewhere more rural and more local and more, um, uh, away from cities, right? And being more self-sustaining, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean, not only just that, but like even if you live in a city or a specific community, take I mean, take some
take
responsibility.
responsibility for
Yeah,
yourself, for your loved ones,
yeah, your community.
and,
Like,
and form relationships with your neighbors,
yeah,
to,
what?
to help one another and support each other, and try to find like-minded individuals who are like, yeah, man, I'm tired of this corruption, and let's figure out how we can help ourselves
Yeah,
and build, protect our families and build up our community,
yeah.
in
Like
a
just
way
to
where
cap it
we
off.
don't need those corrupt bureaucrats.
Hmm. Yeah, just to cap it off with another fictional story with a good message. I recently rewatched. Was it The Dark Knight Returns? Uh, the
Is that the
Frank
title
Miller
has a question
story.
mark at the end? The Dark Knight Returns.
No, no, the one with old Batman,
Yeah, that's the Dark Knight
and
Returns.
yeah, and there's the whole scene where the mutant gang is let loose in the city. There's fires, and
Yeah, there's
it's
like total anarchy with some
yeah, but what ends up happening, right? You obviously have Batman leading uh like former gang members to stop, you know,
yeah,
the tyranny,
because
but then you
because
also have regular people,
yeah,
you know, pulling
yeah,
together
it's a great scene because he
and
kind of forces them to work together because he earned the respect of the gang members in the previous uh adventure in the in the series. I don't know if anyone saw it, but
right,
he
but it's
fought
not
their
just that,
leader
but it's also
and
like
subdued
Commissioner
him, and
Gordon and like a bunch of other just regular dudes like, hey, we gotta, this is our
yeah,
city,
yeah, we
we
need to
gotta,
take
they
care of
start
people.
putting out the
Right,
fires, they start,
yeah,
arresting people, they start helping each other.
right,
So it's not just Batman doing all the
right,
work, it's
exactly.
everybody.
Yeah, I love that scene because I thought it's so powerful because it's like, yeah, he's Batman, right?
Yeah,
But he's not Superman, right? He's not someone that can be everywhere at once. He's still just a man, but he's a
yeah,
man that's willing to take responsibility for himself and for others, right? And in that inspires others to do the same, right? And that's the beauty of that scene is that and like I said with the gang members, it was like because some people were kind of reluctant, but it's like look, you know you got to do this, like there's no like if ands or buts, work together, and we got to save lives, right? We got to help people, and but because he earned their respect, you know they're just like yeah man, like let's do what this guy says. You know, you know what I mean? It's like
Hmm.
that's what it's going to take. It's going to take men. It's primarily men, but women as well, but primarily men stepping up and taking responsibility and you know um, earning the respect of others, so that others will listen to you, right? And when you do that, people are more willing to listen to you when you've earned their respect, right? You've shown that you're leading in the front, from the front, not from the back, right? So but yeah, that's a good example. And what once again, there's it has a theme of rebellion with Batman and the government, right? That's what led to the big fight between Superman and Batman. They represented sort of a
Oh yeah, that
government
was great.
versus anarchy, right? Like the idea of individualism. That Batman was like, look, I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do, I have the freedom to do what I want to do, right? I'm going to help where help is needed. I'm going to protect my city. I'm going to right, and I'm not going to kowtow to the government, right? And because of what he did, right, what we just talked about, it made the government look bad because their response was poor, right? The response
Yeah.
to
Right.
the tragedy was terrible, so it made them look bad that this vigilante was taking the helm and actually saving the city and help bringing it out of the ashes, right? Um,
Hmm.
and so it's like, okay, we need to take care of this guy, right? Like he's making us look bad. He's not kowtowing to our policies and this, like Superman, right? Superman was kind of just doing what he was told. You know,
Yeah.
he was truly a statist, right? And part of that is him being this true patriot, right? And it's like it's an interesting dynamic, and I thought it was well done. Like the nuance was there. It's not about saying Superman was bad and Batman is good.
Yeah.
It's like they both had their reasons, and they were valid reasons, right? Because Superman is looking at the big picture, right? And he's like, look, this country represents freedom and liberty. We have to protect that. We have to fight against those who would take it away, right? And I'm helping to do that, and I get that. It's like, yeah, you know, Batman's like, look, man, but the state here, here at home, local, it's like, yeah, they're squelching our freedom, right? They're keeping me from doing what needs to be done, right? And the young people don't have someone to look up to. They're looking up. That's why you have these gangs and all this. It's like, and part of it is a criticism of, once again, of government leadership not being good examples, not facilitating that that need, that void that existed with young people. Not that it's their job though. That's where I part ways, right? It's like it's not the government's job, right?
Yeah.
It's your job, Batman. It's your job, Commissioner Gordon. It's father's job. Yeah, you understand what I'm saying? But still, it's an understandable criticism, and he steps in, and that's part of why he took the guy down the way he did, right? The what was he? I guess he was like kind of a half crocodile guy. I don't know.
he's Killer Croc without the scales. Yeah.
Yeah, and but that's why he took him down the way he did, right? Because he could have like did the whole stealth ninja thing and just took him out.
No, he had to
You know,
do it in
he
front
had to
of
do it in
everybody
public.
else.
Yeah, he understood what was happening here. He's like, you have gangs because they don't have leadership. Young men don't have leadership. They have no one to look up to. And here's this guy who comes in. He's the biggest, he's the baddest, he's strong, he's got means. So they're going to look to him for guidance, and he's misguiding them, right? So I'm going to come in, I'm going to take this guy down very publicly and openly so they can see that there's a better way. That was the point. You understand? Like, I'm the better way, you know? And man, that was powerful. It's one of my
Yeah.
favorite scenes ever
Yeah, it was
because
awesome.
it's like you're mistaken. Like, this is, I'm the doctor. This is my operating room, right?
Yeah, yeah, that was
Like, it's
nuts.
awesome, right? It's like probably one of the best iterations of Batman like ever, right? So
Yeah.
if you haven't seen it, go see it. Like, look it up, find it somewhere, go watch it. The Dark Knight Returns,
Yeah,
part one
both
and
the
two.
book and the movie are great.
Yeah, the book and the movie just exceptional, right? So you got to check it out if you haven't. If you haven't, I feel sorry for you. You're missing out. So it really is an excellent, excellent series and movie. But yeah, it's like, but yeah, so you have this sort of rebellion there, and it's like you can accept it there, right? We see that. And it's like, what is it telling us, though, right? It's telling us that at least from my perspective, watching that is telling me the world needs strong men, right? That's what Batman, in my opinion, represents, right? A man who says, I got to do what's necessary because no one else is doing it, right? That was the fact of the matter in that series, in those movies, right? So he's like, yeah, the streets are unsafe again. Now there's these gangs and they're highly organized and all this kind of stuff. And the police, they're shorthanded. They don't have the resources they need. You know, he steps back up. Even though he's an old man and he's probably taking heart medication, right? you know, it's like, but he's like, hey, got to do it, right? Who else will? You know, and it ends beautifully with the idea, right? The implication that he's going to teach the next generation, like all these
Yeah,
hoodlums and thugs that were once, running the streets, terrorizing people. Now he's going to train them to help, right? To
yeah,
save people, to do good. That's amazing, right? So yeah, it's very powerful. I love it. So um, once again, I'll say we need more stories like that also, right? Because it's nice to have stories about rebellion, yeah, and maybe there is a logic to like Hollywood puts out these things like Hunger Games, right? Not to inspire us to rebel, but to kind of squash the desire to rebel, right? By sort of medicating us with the idea of rebellion being satisfied in the movie, right? So we can go
yeah.
back to real life and not want to do it, right? Because it's like, well, I've already been satisfied, right?
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like it's kind of interesting. It makes you wonder if that is sort of this nefarious plan behind it all. Like that's why they love doing these kind of films where young people rebel against the authoritarians, right? And they're almost always conservative, right? And it's almost always capitalistic. It's,
Yeah.
so that's something else. That's something too. There's definitely a little propaganda in that. Um, but yeah, I don't think it actually works that way. I do think that if push comes to shove, people will push back, right? Um, and I mean that's indicative. Like I said, we just brought it up earlier with the
Of history.
riots,
Yeah,
yeah, just throughout history, but even in recent years with the riots across the country, and the protests, it's like yeah, people are gonna push back when they feel that they've been mistreated, right? And my criticism is just push back for the right reasons with the right goals, right? And part of the problem is with a lot of these protests that tend to lean left, you know, um, I believe they're very misguided, right? They don't have the right intentions or the right goals because their goal is always more government, right? We need more government. We need more, policies. We need more rules versus saying get rid of these rules, right? Like in
hmm,
contrast, going back to 2020 and 21 with the lockdowns, you had a lot of people who pushed back and they were saying get rid of these rules. They weren't asking for more government policies or something. They were saying get rid of these policies, right? Get rid of these because they were tyrannical, you know. So it's like to me that's the right reasons, right? Like get rid of this stuff. Don't give us more stuff. Get rid of it. Like you're in my way. You're blocking my freedom, right? That's what we should be rising up against is when government infringes upon our freedoms, not demanding more from government. Because when we do that, we're actually giving up more of our freedom. I mean,
Hmm.
that's the price you pay for more policies and laws and rules. And unfortunately, that happens on both sides. So this is not just a critique against the left; it's also against the right, who demand more drug laws, for example. Right? It's like, okay, so and it's not a promotion of drugs. It's just most of the time people are buying them upon their own volition, right? Like addiction or not, So you're infringing upon free. You're taking away freedoms, right? When you ask for more laws, more rules. And there's exceptions. Like recently, there's been um, I think there was a bill for regarding requiring U.S. citizens, like you have to be a U.S. citizen to vote, right? It's kind of like it's
Like that's
sad
a
that that's
no
something that's
brainer, but
yeah, it's sad that that has to be done. I guess I'm kind of like I thought that was the case, but apparently not. So now it's a requirement. I guess maybe on a federal level, maybe that's it, there was never a actual law, federal law. Maybe I'm sure locally among states, that's probably you know maybe I don't know, but it's kind of like okay, that's kind of a common sense law, right? Especially when you're talking about something like voting and you want to avoid fraud, right? That kind of makes sense. So that's one of those rare exceptions where it's like, I guess that makes sense. But I haven't read it. I don't know if it has like some hidden bureaucracy in there. That's like, oh, this is a problem, right? So that seems to almost always be the case with when they pass these bills, right? So, but yeah, um, less government is better. That's just me, you know. Um, and I think a lot of people agree with that. Less is better. Less is more. Less government is more freedom, more liberty. You know, and it's not, and it doesn't mean do what you feel like doing. Like, oh, I feel like knocking over this liquor store or stealing.
well,
That's
freedom
not
of
what
choice isn't
it's
freedom of
depravity.
responsibility.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of people conflate freedom with depravity. It's like, yeah, freedom doesn't mean you have the liberty to be depraved. You can be, but that doesn't mean you're gonna be that without
But you're
consequences.
not free from the consequences.
And
That's what you're saying.
it's not even freedom from the rule of law in relation to basic laws, right? Um, laws against theft, against fraud, lying, uh, murder. It's like it doesn't negate those things, right? Um, so it's kind of funny when I talk to people and it's like they're so you wouldn't have it's like you know it's like no one's saying that it's good to do those things. So, but yeah, we're going on almost 2 hours, and I don't know if there's any other points you wanted to make or
No,
anything
I mean that's it. I mean, I would just say, yeah, I already kind of said what I wanted to say earlier is, change starts with you and changing you, so you could uh, change yourself, so you can change the world. I mean, that's all it really boils down to.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. It starts with us taking responsibility for ourselves, right? And when we can do that, yeah, we I think if more people did that and did it consciously, like I don't mean because a lot of people are responsible, right? A lot of I think most people who have jobs and families are responsible, but a lot of times they're not self-aware, right? Like because they'll still support more government. And it's like because you're kind of looking at this surface level thing and say, well, this is a need here, or this, you know, and it's like, well, think it through, right? Um, we don't need more government, right? Because that's what's creating a lot of the problems we're seeing today, right? Because government is bloated. Um, so it's like be aware of self, and like what did you do to get to where you are? You know, um, what did you do to achieve your success? Right. And most of the time, it had nothing to do with government. Most of the time, right? It's had to do with you working hard, doing what needed to be done, being responsible, being accountable, seeking opportunities, taking advantage of opportunities. So this is, yeah, but yeah, start with self, and hopefully, that'll lead to great things if more of us did it, right? So, but thanks for joining us. Thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for you know any encouragement and support. It's always appreciated. I'm very thankful, and for the opportunity to sit and converse and um, present to you. So thanks again, and have a great rest of the weekend. Make it a wonderful day.
We'll see you around.